In this video, we're going to talk about transmission. We previously covered coding, base parameters, and specular reflections in previous videos. So if you're looking for those first, you may want to review those prior to starting this one. Okay, so with transmission, what transmission is essentially how light passes through an object when it passes through an object. If you have something that's opaque, you're not going to use this. You're just going to leave this off. By default, it's off, and this is what something that's opaque looks like. Here is what something that is 100%, and again, we've got a slider, just like all the others, where it goes from 0% to 100%. So if we fully engage this and set it to 1, you see it looks like he's made out of water. And while we normally use these beautiful blue shades for water, water is actually colorless. Water takes on whatever is reflected on it, whatever's around it, light that hits it. Most of the time when you're using water, you want to use some shade of gray to create that water to make it see-through. All right, so this is completely, the transmission on this is full. It's 100%. If we go somewhere less, let's say somewhere in the middle, take it close to 50% here. You're kind of somewhere in between. Light sort of passing through it a little bit. It's more like light passing through something viscous, like jelly. Okay? So I'm going to, well, stop this. And then maybe, hit it twice, cancel. I'm going to increase this so we get a little more transparency here. The next thing you could do is you can change the transmission color. And this is how the color filters through the surface. With water, when things filter through, they kind of turn blue because the other light rays filter out. The longer it travels, the more it's affected by this color. So for instance, let's pick a nice blue. Now initially when we render out, we're not going to see anything, so we're going to have to increase this. Let's try not 100%. Sometimes 100% does things a little bit differently than 90. Let's just go with 90. And he has a little bit of a blue tinge to him, and you can start to see some of that blue showing up. Now depth has to do with how deep, how far the light penetrates the surface. The smaller the number, the less depth. The higher the number, the more depth. It's just taking forever to render. Okay. So if I increase this number, my light and my color are going to penetrate further into my character. Now, if I change, come down here, I'm going to skip over this for the moment. If I change my scatter color, it is going to change. Right now my scatter color is black. And you kind of see this grayish tinge to this. If I change my scatter color, it changes the effect, and it is tied to my depth. Oops, I'm just going to cancel this. This is still going. Let's make it a little more transparent here. I mean, a little less transparent. Now, one of the problems is we have nothing behind it. So I'm going to come over here and just draw a cylinder behind this guy. and attach material to him. Okay, so we're back to here. You can kind of see here that it's a little more see-through. Now let's render this out. Okay, that's a little bit better because now I can see through my object. And one of the reasons I wanted to show you that is because often what happens is you'll set something up and then you'll be like, well, I don't understand why I can't see it, right? What happened? Why is it not transparent? You have to be able to see something on the other side of an object in order for it to be see-through. Right? Okay, so now we can see this object that is behind him through him because we have now adjusted this. Usually you'll use thin-walled for single-sided objects. If an object is has multiple sides to it, as this one does, I'll show you what it does. Sometimes it's what you want. The people will say, don't ever do this, it will mess things up. And sometimes that's true, but in this case, this is what happens when I do thin wall. I actually like that better. So check it, see if it works better. If it doesn't, uncheck it. Because technically what it does is it applies this scatter color or this general color to your object, and if you don't check it, if it's a single-sided object and you don't check it, you don't get the color. Now this actually isn't a single-sided object, but it worked better. So you see I solved that problem. Okay, what is that? Alright, so now we're going to come down here to roughness. And this adds this roughness here. The first one, it adds dispersion. It just diffuses your object. So I'm just going to add some in there. There's 100%. And look what it does. It diffuses the light. You see how the object behind it isn't sharp anymore. It's fuzzier. So it sort of creates, it makes it look more like glycerin soap. You know, glycerin soap is, you can see through it, but it's not viscous like a liquid. Okay, so that's what the roughness does. I'm going to take that back out for now. And then the dispersion Abby, what it does is it's something that we use with water or with glass to increase what it does is it changes the wavelength of the light so that it disperses like something that's a gem or a jewel. And you want to use a much higher number, like between 10 and 70. You can kind of start seeing some effects happening over here. I'm going to put this kind of around 50. Watch what happens now when I do that. It's thinking about it. Now it's going to be a little more subtle here because this is a rounded, smooth object. Let me turn off, see if it doesn't show up a little bit better when I turn off. Turbo Smooth. We'll try rendering it without Turbo Smooth. See if you get a better feel for... You see it's really slowing down my render time. But if you create something that's faceted, it will cause those light waves to bounce in a way that makes it a little more sparkly. And I get a whole lot here even with the Turbo Smooth off. But I will post an image in Blackboard that shows you what that looks like for a faceted, more faceted object. Okay, I'm going to turn that off. There's a button here that says Transmit AOVs. Now what AOVs are arbitrary output values. That's advanced and we're not working with those. So checking it shouldn't do anything and unchecking it shouldn't have any effect. Okay, and so I'm not ever sure how to say this word. Looks like there's so many different ways you could say it. Anisotrophy, anastrophy sounds better, actually, doesn't it? It has an adjustment that you can do negative. Okay, so negative. And it adjusts the way light bounces and hits through and scatters inside your object. So this is a negative number. And my rendering's really slowing down now. So the more you ask, the more math you ask lightweight waves to calculate, the more it's going to slow down your rendering. So while I'm showing you how to do this, I'm going to recommend that for this course you not do it, because this is a gaming machine, and if it's this slow, you're never going to finish your renderings. But this is what something you'll want to be familiar with when you start working with this professionally. And so this makes adjustments to how the light scatters inside of my object. Now here's part of the problem. I'm working with something that is a shell. Let me turn that off. It'll make a difference if I turn this off, the shell. So it's hollow. Okay, let's go back to the negative. Now it's a solid object. Of course, I should turn off thin wall. And it's going to scatter a little differently than if it's a positive number. And it's because it's staying blue because this color is blue. I should change this to let's change it to a different color. Okay. And it changes how the light affects a solid object. Okay? And we'll leave it here for this video. Let me know if you have any questions. I know this is pretty complicated physics stuff, but it really is great when you have the ability to work with it and really create some very realistic and interesting ways that light interacts with different objects.